another episode of Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. Jesus Christ died and he rose again. It's going to get into it. Okay. So there was a brawl that took place a few days ago, a few nights ago, between the Pistons and the Hornets, okay? And I saw that brawl, okay? I saw how that fight, and when I saw that fight, the first thing I thought of was the 93 brawl in Phoenix, okay? That's the first thing I thought about, the 93 brawl in Phoenix, okay? And that's what I want to talk. And that's what I want to that's the topic. That's the first topic for today. The 93 brawl in Phoenix, okay? Of course, there were suspensions of players or whatnot, but Ed T. Rush, okay, one of the best officials in the NBA back then, and I never talk about officials on throwing it back, okay, but my favorite official back then was Jake O'Donnell. That was my favorite official, Jake O'Donnell, because Jake O'Donnell was what I call a strike two referee. Okay, Magic Johnson even said it himself. Magic Johnson said Jake O'Donnell does not mess around. If he warns you once, he's not going to warn you again. He doesn't care if it's a seventh game. He will throw you out. Okay? Yeah, so Jake O'Donnell was what I call a strike two ref. Okay? If Jake O'Donnell warns you once, he's not going to warn you again. He's going to hit you with the T the second time. Okay? So, yeah. Jake O'Donnell was a strike two ref. Some referees go like strike one, strike two, strike three, technical. Jake O'Donnell was like strike one, strike two, technical. So yeah, I can see what Magic Johnson was talking about when he said Jake O'Donnell does not mess around. Anyway, so Ed T. Rush was officiating the head game, the 93 brawl in Phoenix, okay? And there was a lot of talk around the league that the Western Conference back then was soft. Yes. There was a lot of talk that the Western Conference back in 1993 was soft. And that the big boys played in the East, the New Yorks, the Chicagos, the Detroits, the Indianas, the Clevelands, okay? So it was widely seen that the Eastern Conference was where the big boys play, and the Western Conference was just soft, okay? And the Phoenix Suns, who went 62-20 that year, against the Bulls, the Cavaliers, and the Knicks, they were a combined 0-4. Yeah, up until that point in the season, the Suns had gone a combined 0-4 against the Cavaliers, Knicks, and the Bulls. Okay, they were 0-4, and so there was talk that the Western Conference was soft. That teams like the Bulls and the Knicks come into the Western Conference and it push around teams like the Lakers, the Blazers, the Suns, and whatnot. And so that game was pretty spicy. But Kevin Johnson and Doc Rivers got into it a couple of plays before. Okay, things settled down. Then Kevin Johnson picked up an offensive foul on the next play, okay? And then the last shot of the half. This is where Ed T. Rush comes in, okay? Ed T. Rush says he lost track of the altercation between Kevin Johnson and Doc Rivers. He was so focused on the final shot of the half that he lost track of Rivers and Johnson. And Ed T. Rush says if he did not lose track of the altercation between Rivers and Johnson, so if that probably would have been in the back of his head, Ed T. Rush says that probably never would have, the brawl in Phoenix probably never would have happened. Okay. So the brawl happened, but yeah, and he said, and Ed T. Rush says it took him 7 hours to complete his report. It took him seven. It took Ed Rush 7 hours to finish his game report because of that '93 brawl in Phoenix. Okay, 7 hours. 7 hours. That's insane. But yeah, so which is a perfect transition into what I'm about to talk about next. Um, there are some people who say that the physicality pretty much ended with Detroit Pistons. Okay, I say to that, no, it didn't. The physicality did not end with Detroit. They probably changed some rules, changed a few rules, yes, but the game was still very physical. The game was still very physical up until 1995, okay? The game was very physical, okay? So I would say this. People are probably going to have a different take on this. But the Pistons started it, okay? The Pistons started it. Then the New York Knicks came, and the New York Knicks finished it. The Pistons started it. The Knicks finished it. What do I mean when I say that? Okay, I'm about to explain. So I just mentioned the '93 brawl in Phoenix, okay? The '93 brawl in Phoenix happened, right? Um, then the fight that took place between the Bulls and the Knicks in the 1994 Eastern Conference semifinals. That fight took place right in front of David Stern. Okay. David Stern was there. So David Stern saw the whole thing. David Stern saw the whole thing between Derek Harper and JoJo English, okay? David Stern was sitting right there watching the whole thing happen. Unfortunately, Derek Harper got suspended for 2 games, Game 4 and Game 5. Okay, um, and so their fight happens right in front of David Stern. Okay, and so the next year, Rod Thorne, um, Rod Thorne did hit a tour during NBA training camps to let teams know that, hey, the NBA implemented some changes. Okay, um, one of the changes were leaving the bench during the fight. That's a 1 game suspension. Um, They also moved the 3-point line from 23 feet and 9 inches to 22 feet, okay? Which would force the rim protectors from the paint to stop the shooters, okay? And they pretty much basically eliminated hand checking, okay? Yeah. So the Detroit Pistons started it. The New York Knicks finished it, okay? Doc Rivers had a take on that. Doc Rivers said, who played for the Knicks at that time, said they were anti-Knick rules. Okay, they were anti-Knick rules. Okay, and they were aimed at us because we did those things so much harder and so much better than everyone else. So No more hand checking. Okay. Um, Leaving the bench, 1 game suspension. Um, this is the stuff I read in the book Blood in the Garden by Chris Herring, okay, who wrote the book Blood in the Garden, okay. So Doc Rivers said they were anti-Knick rules, okay, anti-Knick rules. The Detroit Pistons started it. The New York Knicks came along and finished it, okay. Physicality did not end with the Detroit Pistons, okay. They physicality pretty much ended with the New York Knicks, okay, because there were massive rule changes. Yes, the NBA did tweak the rules with Detroit, I believe, but I just believe with the way the New York Knicks played exactly like the Pistons, okay. Even Michael Jordan said so. He said, and Michael Jordan said this in a detestable way about the Knicks. He said they play like the Pistons. Okay. So, yeah, but yeah, physicality did not end with Detroit. It ended with the New York Knicks. Okay. So, again, the Detroit Pistons started it. The New York Knicks finished it. Okay. And some of y'all are probably going to have a different take than me. That is perfectly okay. All right. All right. That's it. That's all for Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am out of here. May God bless you all.